Good evening and welcome to the 2019 Auburn Enlarged School District Board Forum, brought to you by Cayuga Community College and The Citizen. I'm your moderator, Guy Cosentino. On May 21st, voters across the state of New York get to go to the polls to vote not only on school budgets, but also for school board members in many cases. In Auburn, that is a $78.9 million budget, which is about 3.3% up from the budget from the year before. Voters will also go to the polls to elect members to the board. There are 3 seats up this year. In Auburn, the polls will open at 7 a.m. and close at 9 p.m. You do not have to be a registered voter to vote. You do have to be a United States citizen, at least 18 years of age, and have lived in the district for at least 30 days prior to the May 21st budget vote. You'll be given an affidavit to vote at that point. Voters can cast their votes at the junior high, Casey Park, Owasco, or Seward Elementary Schools. As has been the tradition, the College and the Citizen have co-sponsored forums for the last 20 years, from everything from mayor and the city council to Congress, the county legislature, sheriff, and state representatives as well, as a public service to the voters in our community. 3 seats are up, as I mentioned. Fred Cornelius has decided not to seek re-election. William Andre, who is here with us, has served on and off for 18 years on the board in various times and seeking re-election, as well as Jeff Gasper, who is completing his first 3-year term on the board. They will also be on the ballot with Bree Niebel and Danielle Wood, who are also on the ballot. They are seeking a first 3-year term. Tonight we are bringing you 3 of the 4 candidates who have filled out their petitions and had them certified by the district. The candidates are running this year for a 3-year term. As in the past, the candidates have been invited by a letter in their packet that they pick up at the Board of Education to invite them to the forum. And so sitting in the order that they will be presenting are Bree Niebel, and then William Andre, and then Jeff Gasper. They are joined by Jeremy Boyer, the executive editor of The Citizen, who is here, and I think we were just talking about this is your 13th year asking questions of our candidates. So we want to thank you 3 for being here. I know Danielle Wood, who is also going to be on the ballot, could not be here taping during the work day. So we want to welcome you here. We've said that you have 2 minutes to give your opening remarks. We have a timekeeper here, Marissa, who is going to keep you on track. She'll let you know when 2 minutes are up. So we'll start with Bree Niebel. Welcome, and you have 2 minutes as your opening statement.
Thank you. My name is Brianne Niebel, and I've been an Auburn resident almost all of my life. After briefly living in North Carolina, I've come back to put my roots down here with my family. I'm newly entering positions of leadership within our community, such as owning a dog grooming business that I started a little over a year ago, and now hopefully with a position on the Board of Education. This school district can and has helped to create wonderfully successful people. I like to think of myself as one of them, having graduated from Auburn High School and then going on to graduate with my bachelor's degree, and then later opening my own business. And so I would like to do what I can to make sure that that's something that the district can continue to do. Having a child who will be entering our school system in the not so distant future, I've realized that I want to be a part of the conversation and do my part in creating the best educational environment that I can for our community. I humbly look forward to how much I could learn from the more experienced members of the board if elected, while also bringing a new perspective to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Niebel. We'll now hear from Mr. Andre. Welcome back.
Thank you. As stated, my name is William Andre, and my wife, Christine, and between her and I, we've had 6 kids. 5 of them graduated from Auburn High. They all graduated, but 5 from Auburn High School. I feel that I personally owe the Auburn School District a lot because my 4 kids all graduated from Auburn High. They were all able to go off to college and do well, and they all had professional jobs. And I never forget that because they were very well-rounded and ready to go when they graduated high school. So my board service, my first term was my first set was 9 years from 1999 to 2008. I took a year off, went back on. The next term was 2009 through 2004. And then currently I've been on since 2013. I asked why I decided to run again. because I had some thoughts of not running, but I was encouraged by family, friends, and I decided that I still have more to give, I still have more energy, I still want to continue to see the district move forward. I feel that we have the administration in place, the board in place, and the teachers. We have wonderfully gifted administrators and teachers, and I want to continue to be part of it. I'm just not ready to walk away at this point. I want to be part of continuing to move the district forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andre. We'll now hear from Mr. Gasper, who's seeking re-election. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Guy and Jeremy, for coming, and thanks to the whole CCC campus for hosting us here today. Jeff Gasper, lived in the district for 13 years now. I have 4 children, 6, 11, 13, and 15, all of which are in the district, scattered across 3 different schools. When I sat here last time 3 years ago, much like Bree, was kind of unclear of what being a school board member was, what it entailed. And I can say I've definitely, my phrase was I drank from the fire hose for sure, the first 3 years. Learned a lot, participated in a lot of different committees within the school district, learned a lot of things. And much like Bill, I want to continue to help the district. We all on the board, 9 of us, bring a certain unique aspect of knowledge and background, and I think as a consummate whole, we really do a lot. One of the things that I was a big part of was the capital improvement project. Thank you to the community for moving forward with that. There's a lot of work to be done, and I'd love to continue to help with that project and move things forward. So I look forward to continuing to help the district and the community. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you. We're going to have Mr. Boyer ask you questions. He can ask it of all of you or individually. If if it's for everybody, we'll just go down the line and we'll rotate that. If someone says something after you've spoken and you'd like to follow up, just give me the high sign. We'll give you an extra minute, and Marissa will again keep you on target. Mr. Boyer, welcome back.
Thank you. We'll dive in for questions for everyone, and start with the budget proposal, because that's the other thing that will be on the ballot for voters when they go on May 21st to the polls. And last week the board approved the proposal to put in front of voters. It would increase the tax levy by 2.23%, which complies with the state tax cap. Spending is up about 3.3%. But unlike in some recent years where you've had to do layoffs, this year there aren't any layoffs per se. Some positions are being phased out through retirements. So given everything you know about the budget, you two obviously voted on it. Tell me, will you support it when you go to the poll, and why?
All right. Since Ms. Nebel went first, we'll start with Mr. Andre and go down the row. You have 2 minutes on the budget.
I will definitely go and support the budget. I will personally vote for it. I will tell friends and family and anyone that asks me to vote yes. I think it's not the perfect budget. We need more, but you have to stay within that property tax cap or get a supermajority, which is difficult and risky. And one thing I want to make sure people know, and I know Jeff and I have had this conversation, and with a lot of board members. The school district, and especially the board, we are very thankful for what Auburn has done for us the last few years. We had the much needed turf project that they stepped up and said yes. We had the capital improvement project that wasn't anything fancy. It was things that were greatly needed. They said yes. And I think this is a responsible budget that takes care of what we need as a district, and also takes care of the taxpayers that have been so good to us through the last 3 times we've asked them for projects and budgets. So yes, I do. I support it heavily.
Thank you, Mr. Andre. Mr. Gasper.
Yes, thank you. So yes, I do support the budget myself. Just to dovetail off of what Bill was saying, it is hard every year to put the budget together. We always kind of cringe every time we have to sit down and really start thinking about it. We have so many unknowns until the last minute. We don't get our state runs. till the last minute. We have to make a lot of assumptions going into our first phase of budgeting. And a lot of things there's really three components, of our budget. We have a capital component, an administrative, and a program component. And you can only allocate so much into those three kind of buckets. So we do have to be creative in ideas, and I think the current cabinet does a great job of coming up with creative ways around grants and other means of support to keep programs intact. So one of the things that we've seen in the community, in the district, pop up is a higher need for an increase in special education needs, and our one-on-one aid needs for next year have increased our needs by $400,000 in budgeting. So that's a large chunk that we have to take into account. But we want to make sure that's in place to have those supports. So I think we've done a great job putting together a budget that's, like Bill said, it's community conscious, but also entails keeping everything in place that we want, and actually being able to add some programs as well. So we'd love to have more from the state. We're working towards that. But at the same time, I think it's a fiscally responsible plan for next year.
Thank you, Mr. Gasper. We'll now hear from Ms. Niebel on the budget.
I think it's a complicated situation, conversation. It's definitely difficult to just navigate through this, especially when I think our biggest issue is the foundation aid that we get from the state. That lacking of revenue there, it just makes everything so much more difficult for us. So it's definitely not an easy thing. I don't think I have an easy yes or no response yet for whether or not I support it. I have some time to figure that out a little bit. I don't like to see teacher positions getting cut. It's not necessarily layoffs, but those positions aren't being refilled again, so that potentially, I don't think it does this year, but it could potentially raise class sizes, and that's an issue for me. I don't like the idea that we're getting closer to the maximum of class sizes. That's going to disrupt our students and their learning, which is obviously everyone's main priority is the students and their learning. So I have some issues with the direction that we have to go, but I understand, and I do think it's responsible. It's fiscally responsible. I don't like the idea of having to raise taxes and go to our community and ask for that from the community, who has done a wonderful job of supporting our education system. And I don't like the idea of having to go into our reserves and then forcing us to have longer term issues in our budget, because I don't want our budget to consistently give us trouble in future years because of problems this year. But I do understand and appreciate the budget this year. I just have a couple of small issues, especially when it comes to class sizes with the budget.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Can I say one thing before we move on? What everyone has to keep in mind is we're a very stingy district with. Here's what I'm talking about. Auburn School District spends per child $18,273. We've all heard these numbers. Similar schools, similar size, similar data points, 21,867. Average in New York State, 24,712. So we do what we do, and with no waste. In my opinion, we do a very good job. If you look at those numbers, we're really getting the bang for the buck.
All right. Mr. Boyer.
All right, well, sort of playing off of that, that number, which is among the lowest in the state, really, as far as per pupil spending. I know there was one or two board members who were, expressing an interest in going over the cap, saying, "Hey, let's." We have a compelling case to make to the community to say let's raise taxes a little bit more and try to get that super majority. How do you feel about that? Why was that ultimate? I mean, you've both voted in support of the budget, and I hear what you're saying about you're still making a decision. But what are your thoughts on the idea of why not go over the cap?
Mr. Casper, you have 2 minutes.
All right, thank you. So one of the things that we have to, obviously bear in mind is putting the burden again on the community. That was one of the big things. Going above the cap would not only obviously put a higher burden on the community, but it also would negate any STAR discounts and rebates that would be applicable for folks. So we know there are folks in the community that rely on that STAR discount, that STAR reduction, and again, that had a large impact on it. Aside from that, one of the things I think is, even though if we did go above to make a real impact, we'd have to go quite a bit above, to really make a dent, so to speak, in the in having all the things that we would love to have in our district, and we really should. And again, having that big of a jump in kind of the proposed percentage would put a huge impact on the community. And we just coming off of last year's budget, asking for above the tax cap, turf project, capital project. Personally, I just didn't think it was a prudent thing to do at this time. I think down the road, I think we're really going to have to take a serious look at it. It made the board really, open its eyes to the question of, when will we have to potentially ask the community for that? So I think it's opened the door to that question, and I think we probably are going to have to talk about it pretty soon.
Ms. Needle, the issue of going over the tax cap?
I think it traditionally tends to go to two solutions. We either raise the taxes or we cut teachers, and I have an issue with both of those. So I feel like we need to figure something else out. We need to go down less traditional routes for where we're going to make the cuts or where we're going to get the revenue. I think our teachers and the cuts and the positions that we're losing, it's spreading our teachers too thin. So that's obviously, I don't think, an option. Well, I mean, a little bit of an option, but I understand the option, but I don't think it should be so easily come across. And then I don't think, as I said before, that the community should be the one taking up the issue. We shouldn't be raising the taxes for them, but that leads us to, we need to find something else, is what I'm trying to say. So whether it's looking at what administration positions or finding more grants or more revenue from other places, I'm not sure, but it shouldn't be these traditional routes, I don't believe.
Thank you. Mr. Andre, on this issue of going over the tax cap.
Well, Jeff and Bree both did a fantastic job with it. I would add that the two board members that didn't vote in favor, I respect both of them, and they had very good points. But like I said in my earlier comments, there's only so many times you can go to the community and expect them to, to be able to afford what you're asking them to do. And I appreciate the community. I appreciate the people that pay into the educational system. But I just, and Jeff said that, it would have been sizable. I mean, we're not talking 2 or 3 years ago, I voted to go over the tax cap, but it was not, I cannot remember, but it was not a huge amount over. To, like Jeff said, to make an impact, it would have had to have been huge, 10, 11, 12% at least, for it even to have every 1%, I believe. I do not have that in my notes, but I think every 1% brings in $390,000, I believe, that you raise taxes. So the problem should not be put on the shoulders of the citizens of the Auburn School District. The problem continues to be in Albany. We continue to lobby and talk and letter write and do all those things, and that's what we have to continue to do, because it's an important issue. Kids in Auburn deserve everything that should be coming to them, and it's unfortunate that there's a very unfair funding formula that I've been talking about for years that needs to be fixed.
Okay. Mr. Boyer.
Well, on that subject, because you're not the only one that's been talking about it for years, and I know the district has reached out to legislators quite often, and just especially with that foundation aid formula not been able to make a dent. So the question I have, I'm guessing all three of you agree that we need more from Albany, but what can the board do differently to try to get that accomplished? What aside from what we've already been trying, what new ideas do you have for trying to get that message through and get it done?
And we're back to you, starting. Ms. Niebel, you'll have 2 minutes on this.
I think that in this last year, as far as I know, we've made a lot more progress than we have in the past. So I believe we're doing something right there. So definitely just being more aggressive and not being nice about it necessarily to the legislators, and just forcing our way through and getting ourselves these meetings with the correct people and in the correct times. But beyond that, that's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Andre, what should the board do differently?
Well, gee, Jeremy, when I heard you say it, I'm thinking to myself, we've worked on everything. We've taken letter campaigns, postcard campaigns, bus trip after bus trip, even with our students to Albany. We go and meet individually with our representatives, and I think most of them get it, but it's an uphill battle for them. We all know how things work in Albany. So the one new thing we're trying, and I'm not going to be able to, maybe Jeff can help me out with the name of the committee, but there's a fiscal committee that Ian Phillips has spearheaded, where they're getting the different parts of the board and the community together, and they're having some really good conversations about how to do something that we haven't done and how to continue to put pressure on Albany to give us the funding that we deserve. So I think that committee is something new. Everything else we've done, and we've done over and over again. We all know how difficult Albany can be, and it frustrates the heck out of me. Like I said, it has for years, but that is something new, and they're making some progress. They're doing good work.
Mr. Gasper.
Yep. So just to dovetail off of that, I think something that has been done since my entrance into the board is, as Bill mentioned, the advocacy committee taking shape, and I think part of what is taking shape is really three things. One, getting the community even educated on the issue, what's a norm for another district and where we are as a district, just to educate the public. So I think that's one thing that we've been doing. We did make a trip to City Council and talk to them as well as a board, just to educate them on what's happening from another aspect of the community. And then third is, I actually went to Albany with a couple of our cabinet and met with some of the financial folks that actually work on this foundation aid formula. And we sat down and had a discussion about some of the specific categories of the foundation aid. The foundation aid formula is about 30 pages long or something ridiculous. And there's very many complex parts of it. One part is called the IWI, the Income Wealth Index. That part alone, we looked at it, and because of being under a certain percentage and less than this but greater than this kind of fuzzy math, we've kind of had a damper to our foundation aid formula hitting us capital-wise. So even taking small parts of the foundation aid formula, instead of eating the whole elephant, taking bite-sized pieces and really trying to get an understanding of how, if we can impact small parts of the formula, how it will impact our district a lot. So we have been making strides. We need to make more, and we'll continue to.
All right. Thank you. Just for the public, you are about halfway through the 2019 Auburn Enlarged School District Forum. We have 3 of the 4 candidates who are running for 3 seats. We have Bree Niebel, who is running for the first time for the Board of Education. William Andre, who has served 18 years on the board in 2 different segments, and Jeff Gasper, who is running for re-election. Danielle Wood, who is a candidate, the 4th candidate, could not attend during the workday for this forum, which is having questions asked by Jeremy Boyer, the executive editor of The Citizen. Mr. Boyer.
Okay, at least one more budget question, and then we'll try to get into a few other topics. But one other aspect that I think Ms. Niebel touched on quickly was the use of fund balance. And this year it's quite a large bit of fund balance, $2 million, which is, I did some math earlier today, about 2.6% of the whole budget is fund balance. And I guess a simple question, but you know, how do you feel about using this much fund balance to get this budget done this year?
Okay. I think we're back to Mr. Andre for taking this up first.
Well, it's never a good thing. It's never a good thing. Thankfully, it's there. You know, Lisa Green, our top financial person, is brilliant with how she puts the budget together, and they do it as a group, but she's the ringleader of it, and she's brilliant in how she does it. But you know, it's just like a home. If you've got a savings account and you have to keep dipping into it to pay your normal bills, eventually that savings account is going to be gone, and that is the crisis we are in. So I don't like using it, but you get to a crossroad where do you do $2 million in the reserves, or do you have more layoffs? So it's kind of just putting it off every year. And we talked about at our last board meeting. Every year it seems like the inevitable is in front of us, and we just keep putting it off. So it's never a good thing. Businesses can't operate that way. People's homes can't operate that way, and we can't operate that way. But right now, there's absolutely no alternatives. There's nothing more we can do. Now, hopefully, some of that fund balance will be able to come back to us. So, you know, we have to continue, you know, like your question, just your last one, we have to continue to pound on Albany to fix the foundation aid. And until that happens, we don't have a lot of options except to dip into that fund balance. And I hate to do it, but it's better than the alternative.
Thank you, Mr. Andre. Mr. Gasper, on this issue of the fund balance.
Yes, it is tough. You know, it's every year we have to look at that. You know, how much do we need to dip into savings? Just like you said, at home, when you do have to do the same thing, it's never a fun discussion, really. Part of what we are trying to do is within the last year or so, we've looked at how can we help on healthcare costs. We have to pay current employees and all retired employees healthcare costs, which is a huge number. We've made some strides in reducing the cost via some of the pharmacy aspects of a healthcare plan without affecting the participants of that plan, what they have, taking no reductions in that, but just being more conscious around that. So we've been creative in that mode. We're also looking to do the same thing on just general healthcare cost to help. So we're trying to be creative there. So it's just like at home. You've got to look at creative ways to help that. We don't like, at some point the well is going to dry up, and so before that happens, we either need to take some drastic measures like we talked about of increasing the percentage for the budget, or reducing staff, those kind of things. And we just don't obviously want to have to go there, but we're working towards ideas around being able to not have to do that. One thing I will say is, we had to dip into our reserves to do something out of scope for from a capital perspective this year. So, we needed that reserve fund to go do that repair of the ceiling at the Auburn Junior High. We'll get that refunded back, but just like at home, sometimes you have to take out a savings to pay for something, and you might get reimbursed later down the road. So having that in place is key to running the district too. So we have to be conscious of that and not use up all our funds in one shot.
Thank you, Mr. Gasper. Ms. Niebel, on this issue of the fund balance.
I think think that I'm new to this kind of stuff, so I don't totally know if I understand this completely. But and to go off of that too, I also feel like I'm coming into this with my hands tied a little bit. Like I agree, there's really not much else that we can do necessarily, but at the same time, I feel like it's just irresponsible for us to be dipping into it, especially as much as we are dipping into it. We need these funds for emergency things, especially living in such cold climates with snow and rain and all of the crazy weather things and all of the things that we have to deal with. So if anything were to happen to the buildings or whatnot, we need those reserves anyway for the emergency things. That's what the reserve's supposed to be for. And then beyond that, when we do dip into it, this is where I'm not sure if I'm understanding it correctly completely, but if we dip into it now, we still have to pay ourselves back in the future. So basically it feels like we're just like putting off the inevitable payment still. So it's just making next year's budget even more difficult, and that just doesn't seem responsible to me.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Boyer.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about graduation rate, because this year, or the numbers that came out this year reflected the class of 2018. There was a little bit of some backsliding. Auburn's rate went from 80 to 75 for the June graduates. August graduates was 80, basically went from 84 in 2017 to 81% in 2018. So it's not the direction you want to see those kinds of numbers go. My question is, how much of a concern is this to you, and what should the board do about it?
Mr. Gasper, I think you're up next for the first question.
All right. Yeah, I mean, there's two things. One, you do have the graduation in June. Obviously, what happens is what's published kind of in the papers and the state puts out is a June graduation rate. It's not sometimes reflective of a full graduation with people in August time frame or later. So it does get a little skewed. The numbers are kind of subject to timing of that nature. But yeah, we obviously all want a higher rate. We want our kids to graduate and move on and have options. And one of the ways that we're doing that is with the Pathways program. So having options around graduation, maybe going to college is not for everybody. And if we can set up programs where kids are on a path to graduate, going into trade school, military, or right into the workforce, having that in front of kids early on in even K through 6 and especially junior high, having that pathway into graduation, I think, is critical. I was just reading something the other day that the skilled labor trades are starting at $90,000 a year for some skilled labor. So that's attractive to a lot of students who really want to just get out there and get a trade. So we have to think of things like that. We've been working diligently on those pathway programs, setting them up, some through BOCES, some through other mechanisms. But that is one big avenue that we have to do to increase those graduation rates.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Casper. Ms. Nebel, on this issue of graduation rates.
I think that the dropout rate or the graduation rate, it's a very complicated thing with a lot of variables that go into it, and only some of which do we have control over. But I think it's something that goes back further than what we tend to focus on. I think we do a really good job of offering some really great opportunities that have even improved since I was in high school. Like I took CCC classes while I was in high school, which set me up really well. But now they have like Project Lead the Way and P-TECH and more programs, which are amazing for our students. But I think some of those might be put into place too late, if that makes sense. I think if our kids value their education, they'll want to go to school. So if we teach our kids younger why it's important and how to value their education, it'll help a little bit with the graduation rates. So what I would think would be like increased career days, So there's more than just one a year, more than just sixth graders seeing it, more internship opportunities in high school or middle school, a more structured like mentorship or shadowing opportunity at younger ages in like the middle school type. I think that just gets it into their heads why they want to go to school, to help encourage them to want to continue all the way through.
Thank you. Mr. Andre.
I would agree with what both Jeff and Bree said. And I would say, Jeremy, it's the first time I'm hearing that number, that we slipped back. But as Jeff said, it's a very skewed process that the state comes up with the number, so I'll have to look at it further. I agree also with Jeff that the pathway option, that's something that our superintendent's worked on and it's talked about for a long time, is a great option, because not every child was born to go to college. I have a nephew that's a union mason that makes really good money. It's hard work, but he wanted to work with, he was one of those kids, he did well in school, but he wanted to work with his hands. And we need to keep kids engaged. That's why sports and arts, music, they're all so important. My 4 children loved music. They loved plays and that kind of, and that's what, they were all really good students, but it kept them engaged. So we need to make sure we keep kids engaged. And I always worry about that group of students that come from homes that they're not encouraged as much. You know, a lot of single-family homes where things aren't perfect for them as students. I worry about that group of kids, and we have to keep an eye on all kids, but that group of kids that come from homes where there's not a lot of money and encouragement, that's the group we really need to keep our eye on. We can't lose any kid, no matter where they fall on, the ladder.
Ms. Nebel, you'll have another minute.
Thank you. I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of that a little bit. I agree that group of children is important, and I think that's where our support staff and social workers, those types of people need to be involved in our school and kept there to help guide those kids and to give them a level of support as well to get them to that point.
Okay. Ms. Boyer, we're going to give you dealer's choice. You can do one long 2-minute question or 2 1-minute questions.
Maybe this will be a short one. We'll see.
Okay.
How it goes.
All right, we'll start. So we'll give each person a minute on this one.
Quick. Basically, the context of this question is, and our Kelly, our reporter, is here, and every year he covers at least, we have 9 districts, and at least 2 or 3 districts, things happen, and board members don't fill terms out. They decide that they need to either, concentrate on something else. They relocate, things like that. And that leads to decisions boards have to make about how to fill the position. Do they appoint? Do they hold a special election? Do they keep it empty until the next election? So it's a quick 2-parter maybe. One is pretty straightforward. Do you fully expect to fill your, if you win this year, do you fully expect to fill the 3-year term, yes or no? And secondly, how should the board deal with vacancies when they do come up?
Okay. I believe, Ms. Nebel, you're up first on this one.
Okay. Well, I do plan on completing the full 3 years. I'm not going anywhere. I do have a business in town, so I'm certainly not going anywhere physically. So I do plan on making it through the whole 3 years. And then as for any vacancies that did come up, I'm not completely aware of all the policies in place or anything like that, but I have heard that setting up a new election type of thing costs us money, but there's other options like voting within the board for somebody, like bringing somebody in by the board's vote, or leaving it vacant. I think the most responsible would be one of the latter 2, so either leaving it vacant or not having an election that costs us money is basically my answer.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Neal. Mr. Andre, on that two-part question.
Well, I certainly plan on fulfilling my 3 years if I'm fortunate enough to have the community reelect me again. I haven't skipped out yet. I'm not about to start. I take my responsibility when the voters vote me in. I take that responsibility. I appreciate it, and I take it very seriously. Like Bree said, there is money to any special election you'd have to have, and we've done it both ways. I'm not going to be able to think of the names. One of them was current board member Sam Jean Greco years ago. We did interviews. We put out newspaper articles. If anyone was interested, they could come and speak with the board and a couple of administrators. So we've done it that way. I don't think we in my 18 years we've ever had a special election that I remember, so I doubt it. So I guess it's all according to how far they are. Like because we have an election every year. So what a lot of districts will do, they'll have, let's say there was 2 years left of a term, they'll have the first 4 board members, and the 4th highest vote getter would fill out that term. So that's the way I would think would be most responsible.
Okay, Mr. Gasper, you have a minute on that two-part question.
Yes, thank you. Well, yes, I definitely have all intentions if the community votes me in, which I really hope happens for 2 reasons. One, I have a 6-year-old who's got a lot of time left in the district, so I'd love to stay on board. And one big thing is kind of personal to myself is my son Connor is going to be graduating in 3 years, and I'd love for nothing more to be able to hand him his diploma. That would be a huge thing, and personally for me, that I am really looking forward to. On the issue of filling vacancies, having an odd number, a 9-member board, there are times when it is advantageous to have that because, for voting reasons, having an odd number. And also quorum. There are times when and myself or other board member cannot be in attendance, especially times around the holidays or breaks or something. So being able to have a quorum with 9 people, it does help. I do agree that spending money on a special election is probably not the way to go. And to Bill's point, looking at the timing of how long that vacancy would be the deciding factor on whether to proceed with a special election or do something outside of that. So.
Okay. We're going to give Mr. Boyer 1 minute. He's the co-sponsor of this event, so we'll let the co-sponsor give 1 extra question, and then we're going to go right to closing statements. Mr. Boyer.
Probably not fair to make this a 1-minute question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I wanted to ask about art and music because this school year that we're currently in, there were some cuts in the level of art and music education that students were getting, most notably at the elementary level. And I know this budget doesn't cut anything more in that regard, but we aren't going back to where we were last year. So I just want to know how you feel about the district right now with where it's at with respect to arts and music education.
Mr. Andre, you have 1 minute on this one. Having just said that you had 4 children that love arts and music.
It's very unfortunate. It's interesting, Jeremy, because when I first got on the school board, I was on parent-teacher conference and I was on Casey Park PTO. I did all that kind of stuff. One of the issues that concerned me way back then, where they were talking about moving the age and the grade that you could get into the Vanguard, which all 4 of my kids were in, up a grade for cost reason and other certain things, and that bothered me because I knew my kids were going to be so interested in it. So it's always been an issue. It's always been a concern. Like I said, we have to keep kids engaged, and that's how we keep kids engaged. It's unfortunate that we had to cut those periods back for art and music, and we're still all hopeful that eventually we'll be able to come back. But I do want to add that although it's unfortunate, Auburn still has more periods of art and music than a lot of districts in our BOCES. I don't want to name any of them, but it isn't like we're an oddity. It's unfortunate, but hopefully we can get it back.
Thank you, Mr. Andre. Mr. Gasper, on arts and music, you have 1 minute.
All right. Same thing here. I mean, my kids love art and music. I know having kids that have had art, at the city hall and at Schweinfurst. It's always great to see that and go and you walk around the district office and kids' artwork is all over the walls, and it's great to see. I do hope we get it back. I hope that it all ties back to the first question around budget and do we put that ownership on the community and what have you. So, we did move to a 4-day rotation. So far this year, since we've made the change, it's been, I've gone to Seward and talked to some people there and my kids, and it's been an adjustment, but it's been working pretty well. We have added some technology aspects, and as we know, we're all in a digital world now, and kids need to have that background. So we've actually been able to make some changes there. I'd love to get it back, but we need to do it in a fiscal responsive and prudent manner that allows everybody to have those programs but still run the district in the manner we can.
Ms. Nebel, on this issue of arts and music.
The arts and music programs are pretty important to me. I think they're undervalued easily, and actually the 4-day to the 6-day rotation is part of what got me interested in the board and realizing that this is a thing and that I can join and be a part of this conversation, because I didn't really love the idea of the 6-day rotation and losing those days of art and music in the kids' week. So now they only have art or music 3 to 4 times a month instead, which is just so small to me. I do appreciate and understand the Innovation Lab. I think in theory it's a great idea of modernizing our curriculum and bringing the technology into it. I want to go back to the 4-day rotation. I understand that things need to be responsible fiscally, and we do need to stay with the modern times of technology coming into everything. But I think there's other ways to do it, and art and music are just undervalued.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for all answering Mr. Boyer's questions. Mr. Boyer, thank you for your questions. We're now going to end up where we started, and that is your closing statements. You have up to 2 minutes on that. We said we would go in reverse order. So, Mr. Gasper, who is seeking re-election after a 3-year term, you're up first.
All right. Thank you very much. So, we talked a lot about the budget and some other things, and just to tie off, one of the things we did say we really wanted to thank the community on was that capital project. Just to reiterate, the things that are in that really tied to that capital improvement project is security at our schools, which is paramount, upgrading of the playgrounds, even just from a student daily activity and outside of school, and also the air conditioning in the buildings, obviously making an environment that's prudent to students actually being able to learn in the building. So I thank the community for that. I am very excited to, now that we've done an exhaustive 5-year plan to get that going, to actually be here to implement it. I think one of the things is just to reiterate what a school board does. New York State education law is we really have a couple core responsibilities. That's approving a curriculum, hiring and firing of a superintendent, and putting a budget together and forward in front of the public. That's what a law says that a board does, and I think we do a ton more than that, obviously. And we are, all of us get in the thick of it to understand what's going on, but we also let our staff do their jobs, and we're here to oversee it and help where we can. But I think I'd love to help do that. We've worked together as a great board thus far, and I think we continue to help the community. So I appreciate everybody's time here again with Jeremy and Guy and CCC for the forum, and I look forward to hopefully helping the community another term.
Thank you, Mr. Gasper. We'll now hear from Bill Andre, who has served on and off 18 years or 6 terms on the Board of Education. Mr. Andre.
I want to start by thanking the citizen, Mr. Cosentino, CCC, the wonderful students that we have here. I also want to thank the administration of our district, all the wonderful teachers, all the support staff, my fellow board members, most of all the community, and I want to thank Bree and Jeff. It's been fun being up here with you. Bree, you're for someone who's never served on a board, you did really well. You did really well. So I want to start with the thank yous, and then I want to talk about my 18 years. I was trying to figure it out yesterday. When I was first on in '99, that first set of 9 years, we graduated more than what we do now. So I was trying to do some math, and I have watched over 6,000 students go across that stage to get their diploma, and I have not missed a single graduation. And with every diploma handed to a student and every handshake, I am thrilled, and it reminds me why I do all the meetings, all the committees, all the phone calls, all the can't get through. We always like to talk about Wegmans in Auburn. You can't get through Wegmans without being stopped. And sometimes you don't want to be stopped, but that's why I do it. When I see students that, I mean, I've been on 18 years. There were kids that weren't even born when that are graduating now, and it still excites me. It still thrills me, and I still want to be part of it. So we have obstacles that we've talked about today with the great questions Jeremy asked. I want to be part. My intention is the same as it was in 1999. I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. That's why I continue to serve.
Thank you, Mr. Andre. We'll now hear from Bree Nebel, who this is your first run. So again, welcome to the studio, and you can close us out with your 2-minute closing.
I just want to say thank you to you, Guy Cosentino and Jeremy Boyer, for allowing me to be here. This is a great opportunity. And then I just want to say I care about not only my children, but the children of our community, and who will be people who grow up to be members of our community. The quality of education and futures of these children is important to me, and I want to do my part in the work it takes to create these brighter futures. Providing and maintaining the opportunities and resources necessary to prepare our children and help them reach their greatest potential is my first priority. And as an active member within the community, I would appreciate the ability to be part of that conversation. So, thank you.
Thank you all three, and Ms. Wood, for putting yourselves out there. They're not always easy, especially trying to get through Wegmans. But we appreciate that. We thank Mr. Boyer for his thoughtful questions. Just a couple of quick notes before we close. We do appreciate the work of Shelley Major at the district office. She's been just terrific to work with, and for her help corralling the candidates in so that they will get their petitions in and also show up for these forums. So we appreciate that. We also want to thank you as a voter for taking the time to listen to these candidates for the Auburn School Board. We do remind you that you can go to the polls on May 21st. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Voters can vote at the junior high or at Casey Park, Owasco, or Seward schools. In a moment, we'll be back with our final Beyond the Front Page show with Cuyahoga Community College President Brian Durant. He'll be talking to us about the upgrades at Falcon Park, the proposal for a new culinary program in downtown Auburn, and the new workforce development site on Grand Ave. We're taking a bit of time off from public affairs programming after today. The students who have done a wonderful job up here at the college are headed into finals, and we're off for the summer. We hopefully will be back to Inside Government Beyond the Front Page in the fall, and we'll have several candidate forums with Mr. Boyer asking the questions again. Before we do depart, I do want to say a special thank you to the college and the students, specifically Professor Steve Keeler, Mike Morano, Doug Brill, Jeff Sesniak, as well as James Reichert, who make sure these programs go on the air, they're taped, and they get everything done. It's a heavy workload that's added on their backs, and we appreciate all their work. On behalf of Cuyahoga Community College and the Citizen, we'd like to thank you for watching this 2019 Auburn Large School District Forum. We do remind you to go out and vote on May 21st. We hope you have a good night, have a great tomorrow, and stick around for the final Beyond the Front Page.